This is author Nathaniel Garrett Novosel, and I'm here to read my blog post, How to Be Happy When Others Are Not. When thinking about the world and the universe, many questions about how we fit in and how we should look at our lives start to spring up. Why do we think we're so important when the universe is so large and vast? Why do we worry when nothing lasts forever? Why should or how can I be happy when there's so much misery and suffering in the world? Now, what's interesting about these questions is that you'll notice that they can be used to justify either opinion that you have, right? You could argue that the universe is large, therefore nothing I do matters, therefore who cares about life? Or you could argue that the universe is large, therefore my problems aren't so big, therefore don't sweat the small stuff. So your outlook on life really is determining the conclusions that you draw from that information as you're analyzing those questions. Now, that last question about why or how you should or can be happy when other people are miserable is a particularly interesting one because it can create a sense of hopelessness and meaninglessness when you think about the amount of pain, suffering, and death going all around in the aggregate. It can feel dreadful and overwhelming. Now, despite how terrible of a thought that is, no one is really asking how to live happily knowing that other people are dying, because the answer to that is simple, right? Focus on the good things in your life. In the world, if someone else thousands of miles away is miserable, you're so far away, there's nothing you could do in the moment that would magically make them feel better. So it's not like you feeling bad is going to make a difference. In fact, you feeling good is the only thing that could make anything better, and you feeling bad would just either cause you to do nothing, go to bed or something, or cause you to lash out or be mean or go, do something that make yourself feel better. But all of those things are not making that person who's miserable better. So we know that answer. But even if it was someone close to you, right, a parent, a spouse, a sibling, a child, if they're upset for no apparent reason, you have two options, right? You can go and be upset with them, and you can go join them in their misery and commiserate, or you can focus on your own life and control your emotions. So, again, your option is, if it would help, maybe have them go talk it out. Maybe it'll help them feel better. Maybe commiseration will just kind of help them vent a little bit. Maybe that'll make them feel better. And sure, you can try that. But your other option is to basically just decide not to let that make you unhappy. So maybe they need to be alone for a while, right? They need to process those emotions. Maybe nothing you can do. Maybe you went in and you tried to help them and they're like, no, go away. Well, you tried, and maybe they just need to be left to their own devices for a while to get better. And that doesn't mean that you have to be miserable too. And so you'd be miserable for no reason sometimes as well if you join them. And in fact, they could be suffering only because of thoughts of their head and nothing real. So all you can do is try to change their beliefs by inserting new ones like, hey, you are wonderful, or you're a good person, or you tried your best, or whatever it is to try to make them feel better. But again, if they're not having it or not hearing it, then your option is either to keep trying or to try to live your life and kind of hold your head up and move forward. But even if it is something legitimate, so let's say they lost a loved one or something, sometimes there are times where you do really just have to let them be and let them process it. Some people just, they feel they owe it to the person they lost to mourn, right? And maybe they're right. I'm not one to judge. So maybe you just need to give them time. And so nothing you can say or do will make them feel better. And so you just have to let them process that and let them grieve and help them by giving them the time they need to move on. So these are two examples of many where you are in a situation where it's perfectly rational to focus on the good and let people basically just be miserable, because either way it's either their own doing or there's nothing that anyone could do, even if it's something legitimate and real and something that it's not that you can revive a loved one or anything, but there's nothing you can do, and sometimes nothing that people even want you to do to try to make it better or make it less miserable. And you're not just going to go sit there and cry extra hard to match them or anything, because that would be weird as well. So you know how to focus on your own growth, and you see a couple examples we just covered to prove when and why you should focus on yourself, even when others are unhappy, even when others are unhappy in a way that you could theoretically do something about, right? Possibly, where they're not thousands of miles away. But you still might be unconvinced, and so that might mean that there are really two questions behind that question. First is, why do you deserve to be happy when others are miserable, which is what people often mean. And the other one being, how can you continue on your own journey of growth toward happiness when so many others are miserable? Or how can you find a reason to continue on your own journey of growth toward happiness when others are so miserable? And so these questions are often asked because people are tempted to join in on what everyone's talking about. And to be honest with you, it's almost impossible to avoid the news and other people talking about it when it's something like, global pandemic or whatever, where literally it's on every channel and everyone's talking about it and finding an excuse to make small talk with it. It's also that you might be tempted to join in on the other emotions that people are sharing, because people have that human ability and that natural ability to empathize with other people, and they want to fit in, and so they fit in. So you might want to kind of join in and feel bad with them as a way to commiserate, again, as I mentioned, or find some way of being part of that experience. Now, inspirational messages like everyone, including those people, want to be happy, so you owe it to them to try. That sounds well, it's technically true. I mean, no one wants you to be miserable. I mean, if let's say you had a parent who just died and you feel bad, like obviously they don't want you to feel bad, but you feel like you have to be, have mourn and grieve as part of the process, and you owe it to them because they did so much for you. But obviously they don't want you to feel bad. They wouldn't want you to feel bad if they were about to die. They wouldn't be like, "Oh, I don't want you to feel bad. Like, I want you to feel great." Like, obviously that's just kind of weird. So saying something like everyone wants you to be happy, so you owe it to them, it's true, but it doesn't always address the nagging feeling that people have, the guilty feeling that people would have about feeling good during times of strife or times where people are bad. But let's go through the list of faulty logic that there might be in thinking that everyone should be upset just because someone else is. So the number one thing, most important one, is that you being miserable can never make someone feel happy and fulfilled if you're trying to empathize and be with them. Now you can quip about people feeling schadenfreude, where if you fall down the stairs and someone laughs, it makes them feel better at your expense. I get that, but that's temporary, fleeting laughter or whatever. But they're gonna go back to their lives no more fulfilled than they were before. So you can never get sick enough to make someone else well. You can never be miserable enough to make someone feel ecstatic. Again, unless it's like some sort of revenge plot where you did something bad to them and made them feel bad, so they want you to feel miserable, make them feel a little bit better. But to be honest with you, even in those situations, it'll feel good. Like, oh yes, vengeance is mine. But then they'll have to go find something real to do with their lives, and so their emptiness, if they don't do something different, will return. So even that, any kind of happiness from that will be short-lived. Next, you can never solve everyone's problems. So there's, you can keep trying, but there'll always be a new problem or new issue or new situation that will pop up. Next one is with 7 billion people all over the world, someone somewhere is always going to be unhappy. Now, many of those people, they don't want to be cheered up and don't want to be one-upped in their misery, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. Like, you think you have it bad, listen to my situation. And I've actually done that before, because I have a nice sob story, right? Abandoned by my father and a bunch of other things. All these things happen to me, not really fitting in, those kinds of things, right? And so if someone says, "Oh, I'm sad because of this," I'm like, "Oh, at least you have a father." Like, no one wants to hear that. like they're just like, it's almost like you're taking away my misery. And it's like, in a bad way. Like, you're trying to one up my misery. So no one likes that. So some people are just that, they just want to be there. There's always going to be someone who's unhappy at some point. And some people just need the time to do it. They don't need to be one up. They don't need to be commiserated. They just need to feel bad until they feel better, right? Now there's another point. This is another really good one. People who are unhappy want to be happy. There's no one who's unhappy right now is thinking, this is so wonderful that I'm unhappy, and I wish everyone could be unhappy like this. So again, while it would make them feel validated, that they would validate their own pain for other people to also be miserable, they actually don't want that. That validation is just a belief that, oh, well, at least I'm not the only one who's miserable, right? That other people are miserable too, so I'm not alone. It's not the same thing as I'm happy now. It's just, well, at least I'm not alone in my misery, right? It's a way to comfort you and make you feel a little less miserable, but you would give all of that up for being happy, right? I mean, if I could be happy instead of making someone else miserable, yeah, sure, I'll take the happiness, because if you could be happy without someone else's misery, then you would do it. But let's go to probably the most important one. Anyone who's ever found meaning, purpose, and possibly even contentment, happiness in their sacrifice and suffering is that other people, or if other people are better off and therefore happy as a result of it. So let's say someone is miserable because they made a great sacrifice. For you to be miserable as a result actually takes away from the meaning in their misery. So let's say that your parent, for example, suffered at a job that they hated, and they never complained, and they did it all for you, and you went to school or whatever, and then you proclaimed, well, I'm miserable, right? And I hate school, and I whatever gonna quit or whatever, right? I mean, that person was miserable before. You just took it to another level because you took all that work and sacrifice and pain and suffering for nothing. Because the goal was to make your life better, and if you say it wasn't, then they just suffered for nothing. So you can actually somehow make someone's misery worse. I'm not sure, in a figurative way, I'm not sure how that's possible, but in a literal way, that is exactly how it's possible. Is if you take it away from them, any kind of benefit or positive silver lining they see in their sacrifice. So to put it bluntly, no one ever said, well, I'm miserable and I had to give everything up, but at least some random person I don't know also got screwed over. That makes me feel so much better. That sacrifice was totally worth it, and I'm so glad it happened because this person thousands of miles away feels like crap too. No one has ever said that ever. But in all seriousness, feeling better because someone is all alone, as I mentioned a second ago, it doesn't count because you're not actually. It makes you feel a little bit better, but it's not like making you feel good. You're just feeling less bad. And then someone feeling bad, feeling like empathy, isn't the same as actually experiencing the same bad thing. So someone can empathize, and that might be helpful. I'm not saying don't do that, of course. But in terms of you feeling bad as some way to make someone else lift them up, it's other than comforting them a little bit, there's not really much you can do to actually make them happy as a result of your own personal misery. And again, empathy isn't necessarily being miserable, like compassion, right? Dalai Lama talks about compassion all the time, right? And he's not saying you feel miserable too. He's saying you empathize and feel compassion, as in you're kind of exuding love toward them in their time of need. And you're, kind of mimicking, kind of coming down facially, kind of mirroring what they're doing a little bit, having that heartbroken face to you, but you're not feeling bad. It's kind of a weird love kind of thing. Instead of, if it was also misery, you wouldn't be able to probably be able to help pull them up a little bit. So compassion can make people feel better, not necessarily commiseration. Although, like I said, it can make you feel less bad, but it's not going to. Oh, I feel wonderful now. And then finally, if all else fails, you can always dedicate your life to helping those people you see who are suffering, and in the process, find out that the only way to engage them in the most helpful way possible is to both be happy around them, to bring them up, and to possibly lead by example by living a good life that they could aspire to, right? So in that point, two things. One is making your own life miserable is going to make you less useful at doing those two things, right? Less likely or less able to bring them up, and less likely or able to lead by example. And if you're feeling miserable and not really wanting to do anything, and wanting to kind of come down to that level, so that is not really going to be helpful. You notice that the people who help others, they come in and they try to bring people up, they lift people up, they try to be cheery, right? They try to be happy and cheery and try to have people mirror their happiness or their enthusiasm or their motivation. Like personal trainers don't go, well, it's hard, but I guess we got to get up now. They go, no, let's go, because they want to have their emotions be infectious. So to bring you up, they have to be at the level that they're trying to get you to. But then also leading by example, again, part of the motivating factor, seeing someone who's done the thing that you're doing or about to do and succeeded as a result. Personal trainer, again, is a good example. Someone who works out a lot. Look how fit I am. I'm trying to help you do the same thing. I know what I'm doing because I'm fit. I'm going to try to make you do something similar so that you can be fit and that we can be fit together. And so leading by example, being a good example of someone who does the things that they need to do to be successful or happy or fulfilled or whatever can actually rub off on them as well, because they can have an example a reference to go off of. So anyone could give you a speech about how you need to live your life happily and to the fullest, because those people who are suffering want others to do that, to live happily and fulfilling, and they wish they could be doing that as well. But you'll just be thinking, but I can't ignore their suffering. But the above list, hopefully that above list, right? The list showing how illogical it is to feel obligated to feel bad when others feel bad, shows that it doesn't really do anything to help anyone. I mean, the only thing it might do is might make you feel better that you somehow, did something in solidarity or something, but it doesn't really actually do anything. So what you want to do is, you can show compassion. You can try to elevate your mood and try to help them get out of their mood, right? You can give them time. You can offer help. You can tell them that they're not alone and those sorts of things. But coming down their level and saying, well, everybody's dying every day, so I should feel miserable, is just illogical to do, because you're not helping anybody, and the only thing you're doing is making yourself worse off. And let's say you have a job or you do something, you help others. When you feel miserable, you probably want to do that less, right? You don't want to work as hard, and you don't want to help other people as much because you feel bad. So by feeling bad, you're actually not only hurting yourself, but you might be hurting everyone around you, either just by bringing them down with your mood, or by not doing the things that you could be doing to be bringing others up. So at the end of the day, you really only have two options, right? You either help those people or you somehow do something to make their sacrifice worth it, right? Help people in need with a positive attitude, make their lives better as they're going through this time, or you can be happy and live your life the best that you can, so you're not a burden on anyone, so you don't bring others down, so you don't create more of the thing that you wish didn't exist, because you're making yourself and everyone else worse off. And then finally, let's not forget, if you feel sad and mopey around people or someone who has something to be sad about, they might actually start to resent you. Like, they'll say, hey, I have this, what's your excuse, right? So hey, my father wasn't there for me. What's your excuse? Why are you unhappy? Oh, I got a B on a test or something. It's like, oh, well, my life is a lot harder than yours. Why are you complaining, right? So, there are people, if you're trying to one-up them, they might be mad. If they can one-up you, they'll be mad. So you really can't win with that. So live your life well. Be happy. If anything, for the people who are not, because you have the capacity to do so. People who are gone will want you to be happy again after the proper, I'm sure, grieving period is over. Although, if you're a spiritual person at all, that as soon as people die, they feel love and they don't have, any kind of ego anymore. So they're not wanting you to grieve over them. But, in life, they're like, oh, I want people to grieve over me. I wouldn't want people to be happy I was dead, right? But, once they do die, they go back to, rational human beings in theory, right? And rational spiritual beings or whatever in theory, and they want you to be happy, right? So they want you to be happy, or if they could be happy, they would be happy. So why are you miserable when you can, just because they're not? And they definitely don't want you to be mopey and sulking around them when you don't have a reason to be, or if you're going to one-up them or whatever. The only possible benefit is if they're sad because you did something to them and then you hurt yourself and they feel better. But again, that's just kind of a temporary thing. And so they have to kind of get to the place where they can make themselves happy as well. Or again, if you can lift them up a little bit, that's fine. But it's kind of hard to offset misery with misery. So I definitely don't recommend that you try it. So hopefully those will give you some reasons for why and how you should be happy. Even though there are, yes, unfortunately, people around the world who are not. But you being miserable is not going to help them. The only thing you can do to help yourself, help others, help the world is to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And so that is, yes, to be happy, to live your best life, and yes, to help people as much as you can. If they're completely out of possible, it's impossible for you to help, then do the best you can to help the people around you and hope it, eventually reverberates. Or heck, we live in the digital age with the internet. You might be able to do something, crowdfunding, all kinds of other things that you can do to actually really help someone thousands of miles away. So that's up to you, but none of that will happen if you break yourself down to others' levels in terms of mood and depression or sadness or misery. It can only be done if you think in terms of happiness, fulfillment, solution orientation, driving forward, trying to make the world better. That's the only way that you're going to see that success and help others. So do that. Don't bring yourself down. Do your best to bring yourself and others up.